Hello everyone, I'm Colonel Joel Wilkinson of the Maine Warden Service.
And I'm Major Greg Sanborn.
And we'd like to welcome you to the 130-year tribute video that we've put together recognizing the service of Maine Game Wardens since 1880. On behalf of both the Major and myself, we'd like to dedicate this video to all the men and women of the Maine Warden Service, active and retired, and especially to their families who supported them throughout their careers. And most importantly, we'd like to dedicate this video to the family members of the 14 game wardens that lost their lives in the line of duty. We have not forgotten you, and we never will.
The first recorded wardens to have died in the line of duty were Charles W. Niles and Lyman O. Hill on November 8, 1886. They had confronted two men who had been dogging deer. When they attempted to seize the dog, the poacher shot both Niles and Hill.
I thank you for all coming out on this rainy night. I was telling somebody earlier that I have been engaged in a book tour, and my very first event of the book tour was a reading at a bookstore in Kennebunk, and 6 people showed up. And the bookseller said to me, "Oh, it's such a shame. It's such a beautiful night. Everybody's just out enjoying this beautiful summer night." 2 nights later, I was in Massachusetts for a reading, and it was pouring rain, and 8 people showed up. And the bookseller said to me, "Oh, it's too bad. It's such a rainy night. Nobody shows up." And I'm thinking, well, what does it take to get people out to see me? And I guess it's sort of light showers with tornado warning, whatever it's coming. I don't know. But thank you for coming out. I'm a registered Maine guide, although I will tell you that what motivated me to write my novels was my deep love of the Maine outdoors. I was very fortunate in 2000 and whatever it was to sign a contract, a 3-book contract for my books, and have not seen the light of day ever since. I just don't get outdoors anymore, so I'm not guiding or anything like that. Anyway, this is my 3rd book. It's Bad Little Falls, and I write mystery books. They're about a young Maine game warden named Mike Bowditch. And Mike, in the first book, which is called The Poacher's Son, is 24 years old. In the second book, Trespasser, he is 25 years old, and in Bad Little Falls, he's 26. The 4th book, which I'm working on now, it's in my bag if you want to steal it, is called Massacre Pond, and it will be out next year, and Mike is still 26. I couldn't find a way to make him any older. And when I wrote The Poacher's Son, it took me 6 years to write this, and my office at that time it wasn't even a closet. It was a little tiny space that had the hot water heater in it, and we found that we could stick a desk right adjacent to it, so I was warm. And there was no windows or anything like this, and I worked in that room for 6 years. Not really, but I mean it was like that, and no one was waiting around for me to finish The Poacher's Son. So I had all the time in the world, and I was sitting there thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm just wasting my life away. Here's the sunny days out in the summer, and people are out there playing and having lives, and what if this thing never gets published? And so it was very gratifying, obviously, at that point to sell the book and actually have it, come out and to get these, great reviews, and then of course award nominations and awards and that sort of thing. But when you're in the midst of writing a novel, you're very much aware of the fact that you're just sitting there by yourself, listening to figments of your imagination talk. It's a really interesting experience, because if you begin to reflect on it, you feel a little neurotic. I write, Down East has been very accommodating to me, thank God. And I get to write in the mornings before I go into the office. I have a little studio in the Knox Mill on McGonagall River, and I go there for a few hours, and with the white noise of the waterfall behind me, and write for a little while, and then I go in and am flooded with questions and complaints and interruptions from my staff and from readers all afternoon long. But by then I've had it, I felt like I've kind of written for the day, and it's easier for me actually to work because I don't have that sense of things kind of brewing, all day long. It's kind of out of my system, and I think it's made me actually better at my job to do it that way. But you're absolutely right. I mean, it's very difficult these days because one of the things that's happened in the writing world is that publishers, even the big publishers, expect authors to do a lot. You're supposed to have a website and be on Facebook and be on Twitter and be available to go to read at a moment's notice anywhere around, within 500 miles of your house or whatever. So, publicity is actually a big part of the job as well these days, and it's an intense time in my life, but I'm aware of the fact that hopefully it will not be extended beyond a certain period of time. I wrote something for Down East about a bear that was killing pigs in Waldoboro. It was going around from farm to farm, just killing pigs, and it got shot by a game warden, who I subsequently got to know. But at the time, I just wrote a little item about it for Down East, and it really stuck with me. And one day, I went home and just started to write that episode from the perspective of the game warden. There was no plan. There was no, I didn't know who he was. I didn't know that he had a father. I didn't know that his father was a poacher. But it slowly began to take shape. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm not going to worry about being published at this stage. I'm just going to write the book that I want to read, and which is what I did for many, many years. And it was also the place that I was going to write stuff that I couldn't put into Down East magazine, quite frankly, especially at that time because I wasn't the editor. Well, I'm a Mainer. Like many Maine kids, when I went to college, I thought I was never going to come back. And didn't intend to. When I went to Yale, I was really, again, very fortunate to get into Yale. After I left, I went to Hollywood. And I spent a year in Hollywood on the ragged edge of the movie business. And came back just totally, I had no money. I was dispirited in 1,000 different ways. It was horrible. I came back to Maine, and many of my friends were still here. A few of them said, hey, you know what you can do? Why don't you come hiking with us? Why don't you come camping with us? It will cheer you up. So I went with my friends on a camping trip to Grafton Notch State Park, where I was struck by lightning. I've been literally struck by lightning. It's a long story, which will one day be a book, I'm sure. And afterward, the only good thing that kind of came of it was people said to me, you want to be a writer. Here's something to write about. And I did. And I pitched it to Down East magazine. It was the first thing that I ever really published in my life. And, here I come full circle, and now I'm the editor-in-chief of the magazine. I prefer to write in an organic mode, where I know the rough shape of the book. I know who the principal characters are. Since I write mystery novels, I know what the crime is, and I know who done it. Then what I like to do is to allow the story to sort of evolve as I'm writing it. The story that I tell in Bad Little Falls about the warden service's travails in Washington County is actually true. there were incidents of game wardens being murdered in down East Maine when the first sort of fish and wildlife laws were being instituted back in the late 19th century. And I was really taken by that. It's still a dangerous place to be. I wanted to get, it fascinated me. And my goal with this series is to move Mike around the state to different places that have different personalities and find a way to represent the Maine that I've come to know in my life in subtle ways, I would say. My character is, he's a really frustrating character, I understand, to readers. I get a lot of reviews, especially for The Poacher's Son, from people who just were shaking their head and saying, oh my God, I can't take this guy. Because he's so impetuous and reckless. And in The Poacher's Son, he's arrogant and self-righteous, and he's self-destructive, and all these great qualities. But my goal with the series, actually, the reason I started him so young was because I wanted to write about the idea of how does somebody become a heroic person, somebody who comes from a troubled background. But at Emerson, I studied with Andre Dubus III, who wrote The House of Sand and Fog, and Townie, which I like even better, which is a memoir of his life, kind of in Haverhill and Lowell and in that part of Massachusetts. He was really influential in my writing education. I got to know him before he had sold The House of Sand and Fog, so he was actually, he had sold 3,000 books in his life or something, and he was working during the day as a carpenter up around Newburyport, and would write, he told us, on his steering wheel in his truck. And then he would come in to Boston and teach a few classes at Emerson. So, and he was just basically somebody who was saying, you should just write from the heart, write what you want to write, and just, focus on being true to yourself and being true to, your sentences and that sort of thing. And he was very influential on me. It's a process, and I think perseverance is the key. As I always tell people who are interested in writing or have kids who are interested in writing, there were many talented writers especially my graduate school, almost none of whom have actually gone on to write books. And the difference, I think, was that I just wanted it more. I just kept doing it and just persevered. So, I think that is the lesson. I mean, it's a lesson with life, right? I mean, perseverance is the key to so many things. I don't know where I'm going. I have plans for Mike. I'd like to write about Mike for a long, long time. But we'll see.